All right, hello, and today we're going back to our roots. So this is, I don't know, about 50 brews using the Avatar set. Try to include at least one card in all the decks. But this is for Pioneer. So I used to try to make like a big, whatever, deck dump, just to make like 50 some odd decks every time a new set would come out. Since they started doing Universes Beyond, and there's 7 sets a year, and Magic's just been kind of shitty. I've done it less and less. The Universes Beyond stuff, that's not as intriguing. It doesn't capture me as much, so I get a little bit less hyped, and I just end up foregoing it. Um, but we got some bands in Standard. This is for Pioneer, but things have sort of gotten better, and I like the Avatar set. I think it looks decent. Still not a huge Universes Beyond guy, but I get that people enjoy it. And I do think overall it's probably good for Magic. But yeah, let's not talk about all that stuff too much. Let's just get into the first deck. So the first deck we have is a Pixie Greasefang deck. Kind of weird, but we're using Appa Steadfast, which airbends are things. We can recast them. So you can play Overlord for 2. If you don't find your Greasefang, you can find an Appa. The Appa can reset your Dredger's Insight. It can reset your Oath Nissa. It can reset your Grimbauble. We even have Nurturing Pixie to go well with all these cards. And then, of course, we have Professor of Symbology, which gets the new lesson cards. This is the standout. This lets you look at your top X cards, where X is your lands, and then add a creature, so you can find Greasefang that way. It also just lets you discard Parhelion, because learn you can loot. So that is deck 1. I think this one's cool. Greasefang, obviously powerful. Typically people play the Monument version, but this is just another take on it. A little bit more spicy. Next up, we have Abzan Tyvar Humans. So this is playing Jody, which says you can pay black, make a copy of it, and then sacrifice an artifact or creature. That just works well with our Drain effects. We can sack our Archfiend's Vessel. And then another new card we have is Sandbender Scavenger, which says when it dies, get back a thing with mana value equal to or less than its power, and it grows when you sacrifice stuff. So if we get this into our graveyard, maybe we priest sack the Scavenger and a Vessel. They have to sacrifice something, and then we can get back our Vessel, get a huge demon. Also, Zathra Necromancer plus Agatha Soul Cauldron. If we get Jody in the graveyard, we can make it so our Zathra Necromancer makes copies of itself, and then you sacrifice things, which can get out of hand really quickly. Also, Cauldron plus Priest is really powerful, where you can just start machine gunning down your opponent's board and drawing a bunch of cards. And then we have Tyvar to wrap everything together. Tyvar works well with Catilda. So yeah, there's deck number 2. Next up, we have Azorius Flash. This one's pretty basic. Just have Wan Shi Tong and Appa, as well as Aang. Aang's probably the standout. These are just cards we're kind of trying, but Aang looks like a solid sort of spell queller variant. Just a tempo card in a deck that is just about leaving up mana for different threats, interacting, having the right answer at the right time, and then doing a little bit of beatdown in between. So not too much to say here, just a blue-white flash deck. All these decks I'll leave a Moxfield link too. I know this is a little bit sloppy, but it's just what you get. Next we have Azorius Monument Humans. So there's 2 different monuments that I probably shouldn't use. Maybe I should call this Endurance, but it's fine. We've got images. So we're playing Gran Gran. Gran Gran's a 1-drop that when it becomes tapped, you get to loot. So that can set up your Raise the Pass. It enables your Monument to Endurance. And it also can just attack, right? Like we have Coppercut Vanguard and we have Luminarch Aspirant to make it a little bit bigger. Just filter out your draw, make things better. But yeah, it's here to set up Monument and Raise the Pass. And then, of course, we have Shelter by Ghost, Guardian, and Seasoned Hollowblade. And then we have Thali's Lieutenant to power up all the humans we have. So this is sort of like a different take on the Greasefang deck. Still a little bit vulnerable to Graveyard Hate. Maybe less powerful, but cute. Using a new card. You get it. Now we have Azorius Pixie Monument. So different monument. This says when you cast a creature, you get 1/1s and your white spells cost less. So if you have Kieran and Pixie, you can just keep using white mana to make 1/1s, bounce loop each other. But now we have Professor of Symbology, which can get Boomerang basics out of the sideboard. Just another solid bounce effect. With Monument, this is going to cost 1. The other card that works really well with Monument is Starfield Shepherd. You cast it for 1 mana, pick up a Pixie it back, play it again. Then you can just amass a huge board. And one card we're not playing that you'll see in other decks is the white land that says if you control a basic, it comes up untapped, and it just puts 1/1 counters on your whole board. I think that card's really strong, but it's kind of difficult to play in 2-color decks, so you don't see it here. Also, Suki's a solid bounce card. It's just makes your creatures more threatening, and then if something leaves play, you get a 1/1 So it works with Pixie and whatnot. Yeah, so just like blue-white bounce, kind of like standardy stuff, but in the Pioneer form. Now we have Azorius Taxes. Pull this up a little bit. Might have some issues with the Yorion decks, but we'll figure it out. So yeah, this is a Yorion Taxes deck. We've got Aang again. Not too much to say here. We got Momo. This says if you cast a flying creature on your turn, it costs 1 less, and then it gets +1/+1 whenever a flying creature enters. So we can play this on turn 1. It can sort of be like a land or elf that can attack. We can play Vrinwing Mare. The flash threats don't actually work particularly well with it. Aang's a little bit better, just because it can do something when you play it in your main phase. But yeah, we can also just curve into early Archon, Spellbinder, Vrinwing Mare. It makes our Quantum Riddler cost less, so in the grinding matchups, you can use it for that. And then we can also main phase this if we want it to be bigger. So yeah, this works well with Field Rune as well. You get the shuffle, but this is sort of just like a Shark Typhoon variant. I think this card's solid in Pioneer. I know it's way more exciting in Modern, but it is something I will be trying. So yeah, just attacks his deck with some extra 3-mana flyers for Momo. Now we have a spicy one. A lot of these decks, I've actually been playing more Pioneer than I have in the past, so a lot of these decks I've actually tried a bit. Birds is one of them. This deck is very weird, and it plays a lot of bad cards, but this card is incredibly powerful. If you have, what is it, 4 birds? Yeah, you get to flip it, and then your opponent kind of just dies, because it gets a land from your deck, so you can get Broker's Hideout, get all the landfall triggers. Your deck's all birds, so all your birds get way bigger, and you can just kill people outright. So we're trying Curious Farm Animals. This is like a Haywire Mite. Happens to be a bird. So just a solid 1-drop. And then we've got Wan Chi Tong, which is another bird. It's also a spirit. That might matter for a few different places. But this is like a value card. It can trigger up the Beanstalk. We've got a lot of like cute synergies going on, partially because of Ambrosia, which is just another Pixie style effect. So we've got Oath. We got Yorion, which is a bird. Yorion is in the sideboard, of course. You'll see it in the title. But yeah, a lot of these permanents can just be picked up for value. Oath Anissa, up the Beanstalk, raised Chocobo. And then we've got Drunith, which can double all our 1-drops and our 2s. Ledger Shredder can get out of hand too. I'm not 100% sure how to build this, which is part of why you see a lot of 2-ofs. But I think if you just have your deck built like this, you can kind of figure out things as you go. But yeah. We also have an Animal Sanctuary you can tutor up. Maybe you don't need that, but it's an okay card, and it does make combat a little bit annoying for people. Spent too much time on the bird deck. All right, Bant Emerge. I don't want this video to go too long. Okay, this is another deck I tried. We've had some reasonable success with it. I think there's a video on the channel. But Elder Deep Fiend, Airbend actually works pretty well with things that have cast triggers, right? Like traditionally when you blink something with a cast trigger, it doesn't do anything, but Airbend actually lets you recast it. So, and it also doesn't say it's sorcery speed. So if I play a Fierce Empath, I tutor up an Elder Deep Fiend, I play my Deep Fiend, I tap on my opponent's land, basically time walking them. On the turn after, I can play Aang with my 5 mana. I can exile my Deep Fiend, and then I can recast it for 2 mana. So it's a little bit easier to set up sort of Deep Fiend locks with this version of the deck. I had other different effects, like typically you need 2 Deep Fiends. You could play Sanctum of Ugin if you wanted. But yeah, so now we have more consistent ways to Deep Fiend lock people. This also works pretty well with Enduring Innocence. Part of why we have Flood Pit Drowner is it's flash for Innocence. So it just means you get to draw 2 cards a turn. So another flash threat is nice for that. And this was a deck that was greatly helped by Starting Town because it was difficult to play like Bant with elves. And the mana is still not perfect. I'm not going to pretend that it is perfect, but I do think Starting Town makes it so you can maybe try more fancy things like this. But yeah, this is a really sweet list. I don't think I've crafted these on Arena because, well, it only goes in my silly nonsense deck. But cool deck. Encourage you to try it if you have the cards. Now we have Boros Heroic. So this is a leyline deck, and we are using a bunch of different learn cards in the sideboard. I hope this video is not too long. I didn't really think about it because there's so many decks, but yeah, so this one is a protection spell, and then you just have some pump spells, pumps 2, pumps 1, you get a shock, and then you get a redirect for 1 mana. So a lot of these are pretty strong, and then you get to double up. So like you can have, like if you have Leyline, you get to double Guiding Voice, you get to learn twice, and then if you find this, like you could get 2 of these, right? In theory, I could have Leyline, I could play Guiding Voice, I could grow my thing 2 times, get 2 more pump spells, play those pump spells, they get doubled. So now I'm getting +8/+8 in addition to the 2/1/1 counters, and I'm triggering all my heroic and stuff. So this can get out of hand really quickly. With Hardfire Hero banned, I think it's pretty reasonable to try something like this. The main deck doesn't actually have new cards, but we are using the lessons in the sideboard. That's the most important part. So yeah, just an old deck, but improved by the lessons in Avatar, which is kind of cute. You'll see lessons a lot in my decks, which is, obviously deliberate. I want to show off some of the new cards. So there's this is like a Blightning. Boomerang Basic is just an incredible card. I think this is a main deckable card. Obviously, it's good to find from the sideboard. Overall, I think it's just a very, 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 very strong card. Kind of like Into the Floodmaw. Does a little bit of different things. There's going to be spots where I think it's even better, though. So we're using Divide by Zero. This lets us learn so we can get our Blightning. So if you bounce something and your opponent has 1 card, you can Blightning them. Just make them discard it. Deal some extra damage. You can use Storm Chaser talent to pick up your Boomerang Basics or your Blightnings or your Divide by Zeros, whatever. But yeah, just another sort of old deck improved by the lessons. We've got Yorion. It's tough to say because the lessons do take up sideboard slots, so there's a cost. But I think it's fine. We know with Companion how strong Companion is and that it's worth it. So yeah, this also has the Narset lock, but I think people have seen this. I don't need to explain the deck. Divide by Zero and the lessons are just the new things. Now we have Bounce Scam. Another Boomerang Basic deck. I don't think we're doing any less. Oh, we are. Okay. There's Divide by Zero. So yeah, we can Divide by Zero. We can bounce our Hopeless Nightmare if we want. We can bounce our opponent's things, get Boomerang Basics. This is also just like an impulse. We're probably not going to have the lessons, but it's just another way to find. Maybe you want to find your Splash Portal Quantum Riddler combo. We have Splash Portal plus Thunder Trap Trainer as well. Also draws a card off Yorion, which is really cute. But yeah, this is just the 60-card version of that deck. And then we have Quantum Riddler, Splash Portal in all of it. Next up, this one's weird. So this is actually an Amori deck. This is a blue-black Metalwork Colossus deck that plays Amori. A lot of just overall solid cards. Just a ton of artifacts. This probably isn't the most competitive thing you can come up with, but it is cute. Plays a lot of cards I like. Some of your draws are just probably not going to line up against the super fast decks, but Hardfire Hero getting banned is really nice. Just to slow down the format a bit. But yeah, we've got Grim Bauble, we've got Tithing Blade as interaction. Otherwise, we can draw a bunch of cards. We want to get permanents into play quickly. We got Mana from Prototype, Stone, Iron Crag, and then the new card is Fire Nation Drill, which is just like a Flame Tongue Kavu that our Metalwork Colossus or our Simulacrum tokens can crew up. We can do some beating down that way. So yeah, this is a cute list. We got Demonic Junker to make our Metalwork Colossus cheap as possible, quickly as possible, and then Sanctum of Ugin to get everything going. Amori's also kind of nice. Maybe you end up playing a really grindy game, or someone has like a Shatterstorm and you just have a big idiot. But making all your artifacts cost cheaper is not nothing. So, all right. Next we have Dimir Control. So yeah, I mentioned Wan Shi Tong as a Shark Typhoon. Already a deck that wants Field of Rune, just a good card against things like Mutavault, enables Fatal Push. And these decks also have played Shark Typhoon in the past. So I figured this is probably a pretty good place to try this out. And yeah, maybe you get some incidental value from your opponent searching. There's no fetch lands, but yeah, pretty basic deck. Just blue-black control. Not too much to talk about here, but if you like blue-black control, maybe try this card. I'm sure it's going to be $1 million when it comes out, which is unfortunate. All right, next up, very spicy, much more spicy than blue-black control is we have Mind Splice Apparatus. This is like a wilderness reclamation. So we got Mystic Teachings that can find a bunch of different instants, but we're trying some new cards. We got Day of Black Sun just as a sweeper. We got March, which our teachings can find. And then we also have Divide by Zero. So this is another deck that only one new card in the main deck, but the side deck has all the lessons. And the lesson I want to talk about really quickly is Secrets of Bloodbending, which is, this just ends up being a basically 14 mana Mind Slaver, assuming I read it correctly. But with Mind Splice Apparatus, it's actually possible to do, right? You can tap the artifact, so it's only really 13 mana because of the water bending. But yeah, sometimes you're just going to end up with this having like 7 counters on it or whatever. And then as a win condition, you can just Play your Divide by Zero, bounce their thing, Mindslave your opponent, just mess up everything they have, and then take over the game that way. But I don't know if this is necessary, but it's cute. I wanted to build a deck that could try it, so I also have plenty of other lessons that you can use to get card advantage, of course. Yeah, just a sweet deck. Again, Hardfire getting banned, I think, slows down the format like a turn. So it makes it a little bit easier to try to do some nonsense in Pioneer, which is part of why I'm excited about Pioneer at the moment. Next, we have Dimir Waste Knot, another fancy deck. We've got Boomerang Basics. You're going to see this card a lot. So we've got Waste Knot. We've got Divide by Zero, which can get us, of course, our Lightning effect. We also have a Distress, just a solid card too. And then we have Boomerang Basics. But yeah, this is just a deck that is... It's kind of like Mono Black Waste Knot, but we just have a bunch of random blue synergy things jammed together. Actually, I've had Bugler Rat in my deck for a moment because it drew a card with Splash Portal, but I don't know if that one's worth doing. But yeah, it's like we've got Hopeless Nightmares to bounce with our blue cards as a payoff to enable our Waste Knot, Quantum Riddler plus Splash Portal. A lot of times with these Waste Knot decks, you end up emptying your hand, and this is just a threat and a win condition. So you kind of just want to trade all the resources with the card like Liliana the Veil, and then Riddler can get you back into the game. But yeah, Boomerang Basics can bounce Nightmare, Momentum Breaker, Thunder Trap Trainer can help us find our Waste Knot. And then, yeah, Divide by Zero we can use to get discard spells from the sideboard, as well as bouncing things and then just making Hopeless Nightmare a little bit better. Everyone knows how it feels to get Hopeless Nightmare. Plus, this town, it's pretty annoying because you just end up losing the card they bounced. Excuse me. Yeah. We must move on. Next one, Esper Obosh Pixie. Okay, what are we doing here? This is nonsense. I try to pay attention to when I'm close to a companion. With Giganta, I think it's pretty clear. Like, free dudes are good. Not the best Obosh deck. I did try to put some cards that can actually, like, hit for damage. A lot of times we're going to be making tokens, but doubling Pixie damage is no joke. If you flip Cecil, you get to double the damage. The Zenith attacks, and then sometimes you're going to have Riddler in play. It's mostly there just to draw cards, but... And Obosh itself is a 6/5, which is not nothing. But yeah, it turns out we can build a deck like this with Boomerang Basic. We can just play all 1s and 3s and 5s. So yeah, I said, why not? Let's do the Obosh thing. We're in the colors, and it's relatively free. Like, there's some things we're giving up, but I think you can pull it off. Nowhere to Run is a big one, like against Black-White, Greasefang, for example. You can play Grimbauble. It's decent against that deck. Not good if they can just Greasefang combo you, but yeah. Another spicy deck, Obosh making an appearance. I think I have more than one Obosh deck. I'm not sure, though. All right, next we have Esper Valkyang. I should have got water. So, Valky, 2 mana, 2/1, yada, yada, yada. You can cast the back for 7 mana. Aang, you can airbend it, and then you get to cast the back for 2 mana. So I can Valky you on 2, I can Aang my own Valky on 3, and then I can recast it. So this fits into a deck that's been around for a minute. Just like Valky, Esper, Pile, plays a Shiko to get back, do a similar thing with Valky and cheat. But now you have Aang as an overall solid card that can enable turn 4, 7 mana Planeswalkers. And you just play it like a Spell Queller or whatever, just an interaction piece. So we have Jace. That works with Vigo. You can play the back half. And Valky as well. And then, of course, Shiko. So, yep, not too much to say about this deck. A lot of people like this deck. I think it's cool that it got another upgrade potentially in Aang. Now we have Esper Valky Pixie. This is a Yorion deck. We are using Appa. Appa, most of the cards say Airbender Creature. Appa does not say that. So Appa works well with Overlords. We can play them early, get the value, and then airbend them, and then recast them as 2 mana cards. But yeah, this is just a Pixie deck. This is a Yorion deck. I tried to build it to use Appa to the best of its abilities. Don't have Aang. Aang only works with Valky. It's an avatar, so Overlord can't find it anyway, but it can't even blink the Overlords. You can play Aang, though. I think it's fine, but we have Release the Wind, which can just let you do the cheaty stuff with Valky. It's also kind of like a bad blink card, but it can reset all your things. We have Professor of Symbology to find our Boomerang Basics in the sideboard, and then, of course, Yorion. So this is closer, I guess, to a traditional Esper Pixie deck in Pioneer, but not really. There's plenty of spice. So yeah, Another cool brew. Next, we have Golgari Seasons Past. Yeah, this one's weird. So I just have Earthbender Ascension. Comes into play Earthbend 2, get a basic, landfall. Eventually, you can start putting 1/1 counters on creatures. So yeah, just another win condition. It ramps you. This is just like a weird green-black ramp mid-range deck. We have Shared Roots as a new rampant growth. This is the first time there's been a rampant growth in the format. So this gets black mana, of course. But yeah, you can do things like you have Tireless Tracker and Earthbend Ascension, where you can just ramp into 3 and then play your thing, play your lands, get your landfall triggers, all that stuff. Raven Eagle, solid mid-range threat, just like a new Graveyard Trespasser. This card looks really good, so I wanted to include it. And then we have a bunch of Pillage of the Bogs you can chain together, and then in the late game, eventually you're just going to go through your deck, find Season Pass, play Season Pass, pick up Pillage the Bog, plus all your other things, do it again. Yeah, so this is just like a green-black control mid-range pile. Always a sweet deck. This card's really fun to play with if you've never played with it. Again, Hardfire Hero ban. Maybe you can try more nonsense. I think there's better ways to get it done in this format than this. But another thing I want to note is how Earthbending works with Restless Lands. You don't have to animate this, and you're still going to get to eat your opponent's graveyard and make food tokens, which is nice in a deck like this because the life gain does matter. So now we have Grixis, Anvil, Yorion. Okay. Yeah, this deck is interesting. Let's talk about Obsessive Pursuit. So this is like a Bitter Blossom for clues, kind of, but you get a clue the turn you play it. The second line of the text is the important part. Whenever you attack, put X/1/1 counters on target attacking creature, where X is the number of permanents you sacrifice this turn. If X is 3 or greater, it gets a lifelink. So if we have Ravenous Intruder, we can make a bunch of clues, sack all the clues, make this thing 7 power, 9 power, whatever, and then maybe put 3 or 4 counters on it. Now it has lifelink. It's attacking for 11. So you can see how against the decks, any deck where you're racing, it's going to be very difficult to interact with. We also have Gear Drake, which gets bigger when we sacrifice things. Anvil can help us sacrifice things to enable our different cards, and then we have a pile of artifacts to sacrifice to Deadly Dispute, another way to get 2 triggers on the sacrifices. And then Weapons Manufacturing, another thing that lets you sacrifice. Also, Yorion can just blink all these tokens if you don't have a sacrifice outlet, and then you can just fireball your opponent for lethal. So a lot going on here. 80 cards. We have Sokka, solid 2-drop, filters your draw, and then it can get really big when you cast all your artifacts. So this deck's super sweet. I don't think anyone expected me to post a Grixis Yorion Anvil deck, but here it is. I think it's cool. Maybe it's decent. I don't know. We'll see. Less Hardfire Heroes means less Monstrous Rages, which means it's a little bit easier to just play garbage like this and block with tokens, and just sort of stall out the game. So we'll see. Next up, hopefully no one has too much PTSD for this, but we have a VV Cauldron deck. This one's a little bit more spicy. This is a Pioneer version, so we're using Emery. We have Hope of Girapur, which you can kind of loop with Emery to lock your opponent out. Also, we can Cauldron Hope, and then just keep doing it that way if we don't have Emery. But yeah, we have Grand as an extra legend to enable Mox Amber, so we can like turn 2 cast our VVs or whatever. But also this just loots, so you can like attack, discard a VV, turn 2. You can play your Cauldron first, put a 1/1 counter on it. Now it has 2 power. You can use the 2 mana, play like a Sokka or something on turn 2, and then cast an artifact. Then Sokka will get counters. And then you play a new creature, then use your Cauldron. Then you have 3 creatures that can use a VV on turn 3. You can see how this gets out of hand really quickly. Springleaf Drum works with Grand because it's a tap. But yeah, we have a Profs and a Steel Cutter. When you draw your deck, you can just give something Trample, Haste, and a million counters and just one-shot them. And then, of course, Quantum Riddler, because any deck that can empty its hand and make mana, this card is good, and this card is just busted. If you're not playing with this card in Pioneer, you should definitely be playing with it more. It is obscenely powerful. I would not be surprised if in a year or two this card's just like banned in every format. I think it's disgusting. Of course, we know about the VV stuff, but this is just another way to build it. So yeah, probably a reasonable deck. I'll be trying all these decks, so look out for videos on that. Make sure to subscribe if you guys want to see gameplay with some of these, and you can also just request if you want to see a specific deck. If enough people say I want to see this deck, then that'll make it come out sooner. Now we have Is It Emerge? Okay, little sketchy, but we're doing Deep Fiend again. So we have Flamewake Phoenix. The old combo was like you just keep getting back your Flamewake Phoenix and then Deep Fiending. You can use Sanctum to find extra Deep Fiends, all that stuff. We're using Tiger Seal in conjunction with Fear Missing Out and Profs to just have. We have a bunch of solid 1-drop beaters. Maybe Tiger Seal's a bit loose because the second this thing just becomes tapped once and you can't untap it, it's kind of mopey. But it does. It is a 3/3. It lives through Kozilek's command. We've got a bunch of ways to draw cards in the deck. We have Blood Rage Brawler as a 4-power thing. This works well with Winter Night Stories. You can just discard it and then immediately cast it for 1 mana because the 4-tap. And then, of course, it helps you get back your Flamewake Phoenix. Steam Core Scholar with the Profs. Mako, nothing fancy here. Another 3-drop to sack to Deep Fiend. And then some Stitching Scabs, which is something we can discard for value. At instant speed, you can make it so your Makos grow. And then this gives you more things to sack to Deep Fiend. So yeah, cool deck. Maybe this can cut it in the world with no Hardfire Hero. I think if the format slows down, you get to explore a lot more stuff like this. I think the mouse deck was incredibly toxic. I think people it's difficult for a lot of people to appreciate the effect things like that have on formats, but I'm not going to pretend all these decks are all of a sudden competitive, but I do think it's worth exploring a little bit more without that deck in the format. And I also think the mono red decks will stay good. This deck sucks. Is it Ponza? Okay, we've got 1 Shi Tong and a bunch of destruction lands. So this one your opponent has to search. This one your opponent does not, but you're just going to Stone Rain them. And then we've got Cleansing Wildfire. We've got Price of Freedom as another Cleansing Wildfire. This can't target our own lands, but we're not playing Darksteel Citadel, so that doesn't really matter. Sunken Citadel to enable our lands. Tiger Seal because we've got a bunch of ways to draw a card on turn 2 and do the beatdowns while we're trying to stay alive by blocking and disrupt our opponent's mana. Does this strategy work in Pioneer? Maybe not, but we've got Fable because it's good. We've got Tursa because it draws cards and beats down. Works with Profs, Tiger Seal. Also, you can flashback these, I guess. And then we've got Hellkite as more LD. Makes the basic come into play with a stun counter, which is nice. And then, of course, the bird is the word and sort of the point of the deck because all of these things make us draw extra cards because our opponent is shuffling. So, yeah. Is it Ponza and Pioneer? Let's move on. I hope you enjoy it. Okay. Another nonsense deck. So this is Jeskai Yorion Dragon Lessons. We've got 2 Meringues down there. I don't even think there's Yorion somewhere. Yeah, we've got a ton of different lessons. I'm not gonna go through all of them. I don't think. I think at this point in the video, you probably understand most of them. A lot of them are just removal. But yeah, there's some cute cards. Let's go through them in the deck. A bunch of lessons in the main deck as well. So Boomerang Basic, we're a Yorion deck. We can pick up things like our Red Invasion. It's also a Dragon deck. We've got some Dragon cards that work with lessons. This is like an Enigma Drake that draws a card when it dies. It also has Ward, which is nice. Maybe not the best deck at getting instants and sorceries in the graveyard, but a solid card, and it's a dragon, so it works with things like Silumgar Scorn. We've got Ran and Shaw, which says if you have 3 dragons or lessons, you get 2 of it, which is really powerful. Then it has Firebending 2, so if you get 2 of them, you get to attack, and then all your dragons get 2 power with the activated ability. Shiko, of course, good card in a Jeskai deck, and then Twin Maw as a roast effect. Goldspan Dragon's actually another really nice one. This is probably one of the best dragons you could play because you can use Professor of Symbology or just have your lessons to get things that can protect your dragons. This one can just airbend it, and when your opponent targets it, you're going to get a treasure, and then you can airbend it, you're going to get another treasure. And you can just recast it later for 2 mana, that's no problem. There's also just like hexproof in the sideboard. So there's a lot of ways to protect the Goldspan Dragon where you don't give up that much. You don't have to play these like cards in your main deck that are just there to save Goldspan Dragon that aren't good in the control game plan. So that's really appealing and that's cute. And then of course we get Divide by Zero. All the Shock Lesson is in the main deck. You can get the Deal 4 from the sideboard. Quencha is just another lesson. But yeah, this deck is nonsense, but it's cool. I will probably try it. We will see. Again, less Hardfire Hero means less Sunspine links, so maybe we can get away with playing 3 color decks a little bit more than we have in the past. You're probably better off just playing like Blue-White Control or whatever. But this is cute. It uses the new cards well, and look forward to giving it a shot. I think we're about halfway, I hope. Maybe. Alright, Jeskai Pixie Lessons. Again, not gonna go through and show all the lessons. Boomerang Basic is the most important one, I think. But there's a bunch of different options. So this is a weird deck. This is a Corey Steelcutter Pixie deck. We've got blue for this town. Of course, Sokka triggers when you cast lessons and when you cast artifacts. So whenever Professor of Symbology finds us a lesson, that's going to grow this in addition to casting things like Corey Steelcutter or Experimental Synthesizer. Synthesizer also works well with Appa because Appa can exile it, and then it's going to make more 1/1s when you cast your cards from exile. The Storm Chaser talent isn't actually that good for pick up an instant or sorcery until you realize that you can just learn a bunch of instants and sorceries from your sideboard and then pick them up. So that's obviously good. And then Boomerang Basic, of course, works well with Synthesizer. So when you basic, Sokka's going to get a counter. And when you play Synthesizer, it's going to get another counter, and you're just going to draw a million cards, enabling your Corey Steelcutters. Yeah, and then we've got Cosmic Grand Zenith to make everything big. Portable Hole as another artifact. This deck's really cool. I wouldn't be surprised if this deck was decent. Corey Steelcutter's just a busted card. Got a lot of good things going on for it. Yeah, proud of this one. Proud of a lot of these decks, which is part of why I'm making a video. I think there's some cool stuff in here. Now we have Jeskai Vivi Ascendancy. Another deck using Grand. You can Grand with a Retraction Helix if you need to interact. Let you loot. No Springleaf Drums, which, you know, that's something that could be in the deck for Grand. I'm not going to pretend any of these decks are built perfectly. Obviously, I haven't played any games with them. This is all just theory. But yeah, we have the Rona Retraction Helix combo. We have Jeskai Ascendancy Retraction Helix combo, where you can just Emery, like Tormod's Crypt, go infinite. There's a lot of different ways to get it done, but we've jammed the VV Cauldron combo into it too, so now Cauldron can make all your things Emery's. You can loop Mishra's Research Desk to draw cards. And yeah, so we've got some other bounce stuff. Trying a bunch of different things. Steel Cutter. Pretty easy to kill your opponent really quickly if you have a Jeskai Ascendancy and a couple Steel Cutter tokens, so you don't even really need to combo. And then Professor of Symbology can find our Boomerang Basics in the sideboard to pick up. It can pick up itself, it can pick up Storm Chaser's talent, a lot of different things, but just a body and a card that I want to experiment with, so you're going to see it in a lot of decks. Because I do think it is pretty powerful considering the quality of the lessons compared to how good they were before. Alright, next we have Mardu Pia. So we are playing both Zukos. This one says whenever you cast a spell from exile, and when a permanent you control enters from exile, 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So with Showdown of the Skalds, you can just murder your opponent very quickly. Like if you have some Pia tokens lying around and you cast a couple spells, that's just 2 counters on everything. So kind of like a Cosmic Grand Zenith, but it's not limited to once per turn. And it has Firebending. I don't really know. There's probably some ways to use it. We're not really using it in our deck, but this is just to make our board get really big, really fast with Showdown of the Skalds. So we have the other Zuko. This is a 2-drop that can curve us into Skalds on turn 3, so that's nice. You can just make the mana, play the Skalds, untap, play your other Zuko, maybe play a Pia, make Thopters, start growing your board, all that stuff. So yeah, we got Thoughtseize, Push, Cecil, and a 3-color mana base. We're going to have a bunch of Shocklands. And then I have some Mox Ambers because I have a high legend count, and just having zeros in your Showdown deck and being able to make extra mana is really good. It also works with Corey Steelcutter, so not the best Mox Amber deck, but I do think it's worth considering in a shell like this. Alright. Maybe not the most competitive aggro deck. This is an Amori deck, I think. Okay, I forgot to put the Amori in it. I think on Moxfield I added it, but I don't know. Amori's tough to play because you start building a sideboard and you're like, I don't want my sideboard to be all creatures. But you can play Amori in this if you want. This is a warrior deck. So Suki is a warrior. It says when permanent leaves play, you get to make a 1/1. Not a warrior, but it grows all your creatures bigger. So it works really well with Mobilize. Mobilize makes warriors. So yeah, Voice of Victory and Stadium Headliner. All those work well with Chief of the Edge, which is a decent 2-drop Lord. We've got Zergo, works well with Mobilize as well. And then, of course, Devilish Valet, which can just get out of hand really quickly. If you can make enough tokens in the same turn, this thing can just attack for like 16 or whatever. And then we have Thrill Seeker that can just help us Fireball combo with Devilish Valet. And it's just a solid card, I guess. It combos well with Dreadhorde Butcher as well. Another warrior. So another cool way to build a deck. This is the type of thing I like in Pioneer. I know that this is not going to be a particularly competitive deck. You can see how I put effort into it and tried to find the right cards to sort of synergize. We've got this, which is Battle Cry, so works well with all the mobilizing. And yeah, we got Multiversal Passage and Starting Town to help these sort of 3-color beatdown decks come together. Again, probably not going to be the most competitive deck, but I do think it's sweet, and I believe it's all warriors. So, oh, this one is not a warrior. Okay, I lied about this, but this does make warrior tokens. So, all right. Next, we have a mono black artifacts, the most mid of mids. Obsessive Pursuit is just a way to get a bunch of things on the board. When you untap with it, it's 3 permanents for something like a Rotten Mouth Viper, and it's also 2 artifacts for Affinity or for Improvise. So we've got different payoffs. I don't know which one's the best, so we've got 2 of a bunch. And then we've got Phoenix Fleet Airship that says you can make copies of it if you sacrifice a thing. So if you make a treasure on turn 2 with Deadly Dispute, you can play this. All of a sudden, you're getting 2 of it. This is a card I thought about with like Metalwork Colossus, because it works well with Simulacrum Synthesizer as well, because you can just get a bunch of 4 CMC artifacts into play quickly. But making treasures was something I struggled with. Of course, Acolyte works well with treasures. We got this thing. When it dies, you get a clue. It's like a decent value card, good with Dispute. And then Journal helps us sacrifice our 1-drops. Blood Fountain for Affinity. This can also get back creatures, which is not nothing. Terminus as just a solid artifact. So yeah, just like a black mid-range artifact value pile. Again, probably not the most competitive deck, but it is sweet, and I probably will try it. Mono red Fire Breathing. Okay, so this deck has a turn 3 kill, where you play this on turn 2, and then you Dragon's Mantle it. So now it's 2 power, and then you play 2 things that give 3 power. So Monstrous Rage and Full Bore, for example. These are just going to add 4. So it's going to be 2 plus 8 is 10, and then it attacks, it adds 10 mana, and now your creature has Fire Breathing because you Dragon's Mantled it. So now your Dragon's Mantle is going to give it 10 power, and it's going to attack for 20 with Trample. So potentially a turn 3 kill. Other than that, we just have Leyline stuff. Mantle does not work with Leyline because it's an enchantment, but I think that's fine. And then we've got some no more mouse. So we're trying to Crone Crusader just to make a bunch of 1/1s, kind of go wide and beat down. We even got a Satyr Hoplite to be targeted by all our things. Scamp, you can turn 2 with Leyline as well. So this deck has a turn 2 kill with Scamp and Leyline, and then a turn 3 kill with Firebending Student. And then I have some Disputes. This is kind of a weird card, but again, we're trying Leyline with Learn, where you can make it so your opponent's things have to block, or you can just target your own thing that has to quote-unquote block, even though it can't, and then you can Learn for extra spells out of the sideboard. So yeah, just another deck using Learn cards, and we're trying Firebending Student. This is one of the few decks I built that actually uses Firebending. I'm not exactly sure the best ways to use it in the format, but Dragon Mantle is a pretty cute card in conjunction with it. So next we just have a boring mono red deck playing 2 Zows. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I mentioned earlier I think mono red will probably still be a solid deck. Just less focused on the mice, no manifold mice. But yeah, this is like a disruptive 2-drop where if you're on the play, you can just go like 1-drop this, make sure opponent's lands come to play tapped, and then you start beating down with Screaming Nemesis and just put them on the back foot quickly. It has Menace, so it attacks decently well. The 7-mana ability will probably never be activated, but I think it does fit decently well into these red decks. So yeah, just screaming like Kamano Faces Kakazan into this on the play is going to mess some people up, unless they're playing monocolored. Alright, now we have back to Spice. No more boring red decks. Mono blue Jewel Profs. So Tiger Seal appears again. The way that you try to use this deck is you use Omen Hawker, you use Enigma Jewel, and you use Training Grounds to make it so all these activated abilities that let you loot are way cheaper. So all these things also can be used, or Training Grounds doesn't work with everything, but they can also be used with Nykthos. So if you get Blue Devotion, you can add a bunch of blue mana, loot a bunch of times, and then Profs will give you a bunch of extra counters after you've looted. So we're already trying to draw cards, so I figure why not try Tiger Seal. Field of Ruin works pretty well with the cards that are already trying to work with Nykthos, so I included that in the deck. And then we have Wanji Tong, which is another Nykthos sync. It adds to Devotion. You can just play it early if you want as a 2-drop to make your Nykthoses better. But yeah, but we've got a looting land is another thing that can be made cheaper by our jewels and whatnot. Yeah, cute deck. I don't know if it's the most competitive thing, but it does get to use some new cards. And I wanted to bust it out for that. So yeah, mono blue, Jewel, Profs, Devotion, card draw Tiger Seal deck, of course, the classic Pioneer strategy. Now we have a mono white devotion deck. So this uses 2 cards that I think look pretty strong and I'm pretty excited about. First one we'll talk about is Airbender's Ascension. So this is like a bad journey to nowhere. You airbend a creature. It has to get recast for 2 mana, but it turns into a Soul Herder after 4 creatures have entered the battlefield because it gets counter when a creature enters. So what that means is you get to blink a creature during your end step. So I'm including Reverent Hoplite in my deck. This is not the most powerful Pioneer card, but if you flip your Airbender, or even if you don't flip your Airbender Ascension, it's pretty easy to just have. This is 2 devotion here, so you're getting 3 bodies. So if you have 1 other card, you get to play this, make a bunch of 1/1s, and then you complete the quest, and all of a sudden you get to blink it again and make 1/1. So you can see how this could get out of hand. If your devotion count is high and you have like 7 devotion, this thing's gonna make 14 1/1s all of a sudden. And then we have the new land. This is just a Gavney Township, but I think this card is incredibly powerful. Any deck that can go wide. It's such a good card for white decks in Pioneer. I don't think the white decks are particularly powerful. These sort of like mid-rangey things. But maybe it'll help something like humans or like the more competitive white decks. Yeah, it's very good. You'll see this card in a lot of my decks. In regards to the deck, we've got Fortune to work with Shepherd. Shepherd's another card you can blink for value to get your 1-drops. And yeah, this can blink the Shepherd. Of course, this can blink Hoplite, Beza, all this other stuff. And during Innocence to draw cards. Toby is 2 bodies for the quest if you're not doing the Hoplite stuff. It should be really easy to get 4 creatures into play with this deck, though. And then you can just start taking over the game with the blink effects. So yeah, Yorion in the sideboard. Doesn't say it in the title. Yep, next deck. Mono White Knights. Okay, this is a weird deck to pick to build over humans, but humans is kind of boring anyway. And I wanted to build a deck that was really good at going wide. So the reason that this deck is built the way it is because of how well Worthy Knight works with Knight Errant Eos. If you play it on turn 2 and it lives, you can just cast a bunch of 1-mana Knights and then get a million tokens into play. Play the Knight Errant and then get more tokens, potentially finding another Knight Errant and then casting that depending on where you're at on the board. But this deck is just really good at making guys. And then when you make a bunch of guys, you use Air Temple to pump your board. Have United Battlefront. This is not a Knight card. Neither is Suki, but both of these are payoffs for going wide. And I think they're just solid white beatdown cards. So yeah, you're probably better off just doing human stuff or whatever. But this is a little bit more spicy, a little bit more exciting. And I do think you'll end up with a deck that's better at using the Air Temple. All right, we're getting there. Mono White Bunnycorn. I think we have a companion here. This deck is built. You can tell I was very indecisive. There's a lot of 2-ofs. Don't worry about it too much. Don't overthink it. You can change the deck however you want. But yeah, so in the past there was like this weird mono white Michigo deck that everyone stopped playing because it kind of sucked. That's what this is sort of inspired by. But I wanted another deck that could use Abandoned Air Temple, and I wanted to try playing Ornithopter. So I wanted to figure out what's the best shell to get Ornithopter in a mono white deck. This is where I landed. Bunnycord, really powerful card. Even decided to include Cloud into my deck so I could get Shadow Spear or Maul to make the Bunnycorn evasive. But yeah, you just get a pile of permanents into play as quickly as you can. Hangerback Walker works well with the counters. When it dies, you get Thopters. Those Thopters can grow. Yeah, just play to the board quickly. Use Springleaf Drum to get mana. And then buff up your team with Air Temple. So even a card like Ornithopter can eventually become threatening over time. We have Cosmic Grand Zenith, works well with Cloud to get the double cast triggers. Even Hangerback Walker as a 0 means you can play this, play your Hangerback Walker for 0, and then start getting 1/1s that way. Yeah, just mono white artifact beatdown with a bunch of different filler. Few ways to build this, but this one's cool. I'm excited for this one. I'll try it. It's got a lot of bad cards in it. It's playing Ginger Brute, not ideal, but it looks sweet and it looks reasonable enough. Okay, mono white Monument. We're back to Oketra's Monument. This is Yorion deck, of course. And yeah, Airbender Ascension again. We're not doing the fancy devotion thing. We're just gonna blink our little value dudes, and I think that's good enough. You can even use this to reset your Yorion, I guess. You don't need to do that though, right? Because it's just gonna blink the Yorion. So yeah, everything's good with Yorion. Yorion's broken. Yeah, a bunch of 1-drops to find off of our Shepherd. This isn't that different than the other deck, I guess, but we've got Voice of Victory to work with Enduring Innocence. Voice also, you don't get to keep the 1/1 counters, but it is just more bodies for extra damage. Um, yeah, not too much to say here. We've got Appa to blink all of our things. Makes more 1/1 similar to Monument, and then the Monument reducing the cost of the colorless casting airbended white cards by 1 is nice. So you just get to cast them for 1 colorless if you have Monument because they're still white cards. So that's cute. But yeah, just a Yorion blink value white deck using Airbender's Temple. Surprise, surprise, another Temple deck. This is mono white taxes. You could build this as like a Momo deck and play the other flyers, but you saw that with the blue white deck earlier. So this is just like Pioneer, Death, and Taxes. I think Light Soul Inquisitor kind of sucks, but it's also difficult to gauge. We're going to try it again in this deck. I have Bassery. I just think this card is solid. It's more bodies for Air Temple. Yeah, we have Portable Holes, Beatdowns with Luminarch Aspirant, and Voice. Thalia is a tax card. Archon, of course. Interrupter is another tax card. Aspirant, and then some Sukis to help us get the beatdowns going. So yeah, this is just a white deck with a curve, some disruption at different points, a lot of different ways to try to build this. Yeah, this is what I came up with for a white taxes deck. You can ignore the Yorion. This is obviously 60 cards. But yeah, Air Temple, I think, fits very well into decks like this, and I will be trying it. Now we have Orzhov Greasefang. This is not plain Monument. This is just another deck trying Professor of Symbology, so we can use that to find our hexproof spell. So if we get in a spot where we think our opponent's leaving up mana for Greasefang, we can play this, find a hexproof spell, then play the Greasefang and give it hexproof. We got Tune Up to get back our vehicles animated as just like extra Greasefangs, and then of course Overlord to find all our stuff. This deck's not that fancy, just lessons in the sideboard, but yep. Black-White Humans. So we've got an Eidolon of sorts. Only triggers on non-creature spells, so it's going to be really good in certain matchups and not do as much in creature mirrors. But it's got First Strike, which is, you know, we know with Thalia, it's a very good line of text, especially when you can make your things bigger. Another card I'm excited about is kind of innocuous in Earth Kingdom Jailer. So this says exile up to 1 artifact, creature, or enchantment. Opponent controls mana value 3 or greater until it leaves the battlefield. So, you know, not the best against smaller creature decks, but it does nab like Shieldred, and it nabs Unholy Annex, which I really like because even if they kill it, then it's not unlocked as a room. Maybe this card misses too much. I think it hitting 3s means it's playable, but this is one I want to try at least. And then we've got Suki, which plays well in our Black-White Beatdown deck. You don't really care if the creatures die, and you're just going to get more 1/1s. And then Acolyte's very similar to Suki, where when your thing leaves play, you get 2/2s, and it's just a human. It's big. It has lifelink. It has draw cards. It draws cards. So yeah, Black-White Humans. I guess this could be a Mori. Again, you might want interaction in the sideboard, but Amori is big, and you could play it. All right, Black-White Raise the Pass. We're back on Sandbender Scavenger. Again, this one says when you sacrifice stuff, it gets bigger, and then when it dies, you get to get back a mana value equal to or less than its power. So we're doing that in the Raise the Past shell. This is something that can come back off Raise the Past, and then we can use it to get back our Archfiend's Vessel again. I think this is similar to the other deck we had, but we've got Citrus Supplier to set up Raise the Past. We've got Gorehound to help find it, Sephiroth and Suki to help just the mid-range beatdown plan, and then some drainers with Alas and Zilliport Cutthroat. So yeah, sweet deck. Not too much to say here. A couple of new cards. Now we are on Rakdos Sacrifice. So this one's fancy a little bit. Not playing a lot of good cards on our main deck. You'll see that I wanted to play Thoughtseize and push, but I wanted to try to fit some other different things. You got Eye Twitch though. So 1 mana 1/1 when it dies, learn. Our deck is very good at sacrificing stuff. We're playing a sacrifice deck, obviously. I don't know if there's any like crazy lessons you can get. I was really hoping there would be like an act of treason, but it just does let you get more free stuff, and it is a 1 mana card. So I wanted to try it in this sort of shell. We've already got Oven, we've got Deadly Dispute, and then of course we're trying Obsessive Pursuit, which similar to Mayhem Devil is just a payoff for doing a lot of sacrificing. You can cat oven, sacrifice a bunch of things, put all your counters on a zealot or a blood tithe harvester, then it gets lifelink. So yeah, cute card, cute deck. Definitely a bunch of nonsense going on here, but thought this one was cool enough to show. Now we have Rakdos Anvil. We saw the Grixis Yorion version. This is a little bit less crazy. Just a pile of artifacts. All these artifacts are redraws. Torch and Deadly Dispute to sacrifice them, Anvil to sacrifice them, and then back to Ravenous Intruder. Sacrifice our board, make it really big. You can use Steel Cutter to give it trample. You can just shoot down the blockers with weapon manufacturing, and then Obsessive Pursuit can give it lifelink. So, cool deck. Not too much to say here. Speaking of cool decks, this is Rakdos Scourge. So I always try to rebuild this deck. There's always new cards coming out. They really like to give you cards that deal damage to yourself. Cecil was the biggest one in recent history. But now we have Mai, and Mai inspired me to maybe, what if we just tried Eidolon? What if I just play Eidolon in my low curve deck? It's going to deal my opponent damage, and it's going to deal me damage, but I'm okay with that because I want my Scourge of Skyclaves to be big, so I can Monstrous Rage them and kill my opponent to death. So yeah, this deck doesn't have a ton of spells, but I wanted to try just like a we all take damage style thing going on, help my Cecil flip early, and then we can just get the beatdown plan going. Zuko, another card that deals damage to us, makes extra mana, becomes a 3/4, draws card, all that stuff. Most of the time, I don't think you're going to get to the point where you give them a Zuko and you really care. I think the game will probably be decided by then, but we've got burn spells, we've got Thoughtseize to deal damage to ourselves and interact. The mana is not perfect trying to cast Eidolon and Thoughtseize, but I think we can do it. Maybe this Den should become another mountain. Could be greedy. And then, of course, we have Screaming Nemesis as a 3-drop. So, a lot of cool things you can do in Pioneer. This is one of them. Happy to show it off. Now we are trying the impossible, which is to get a 2-color deck that gets to play Abandoned Air Temple. So, the way we're doing that is Fabled Passage, and we're justifying Fabled Passage by having a landfall deck. So we've got Saz, I don't know how to say that. We've got Chocobo, we've got Bristly Bill, and then we've got Earthbender Ascension. All of these say landfall. All of them care about 1/1 counters. So you can get down scales early, start playing these, play your Fabled Passage, grow your board. And that means you're going to have a basic, which will help these lands come to play untapped. And now, if you have Hardened Scales, the Air Temple is going to give all your things 2 counters. Maybe you have Mentor, now they're getting 3 counters, or Boroid, you get to double everything. United Battle, or United Front, more of that. So this deck's it doesn't take that much to explain it. Badgermole Cubs, 2 bodies, more things with counters, gives you extra mana. And then we have Restless Prairie, which is good. With Earthbending, because you don't have to animate it, you can just attack it to grow your board. So this is just a green-white beatdown deck. We got some Dromoku's commands as interaction. But yeah, Fabled Passage, the mana is going to mess you up. You're not going to get to curve 1 into 2 all the time. But hopefully, you get some power in different places, and maybe something like this is worth trying. Again, before with Heartfire Hero, it's just like, obviously, if you want to do beatdown stuff, you just play red. It's not really much of a question. There was like some other fringe decks like Hammer, but for the most part, just do Heartfire Hero stuff. But maybe we could try some nonsense like this. Again, probably not the most competitive, but I do think this is I think the way this deck is built is pretty cool, and I think it does sort of justify some of its nonsense, and it plays a ton of new cards. And I know people love Hardened Scales, so happy to show that one off as well. Now we've got Selesnya vehicles. We are trying to blink things with Airbender Ascension. We've got Toby to get 2 bodies into play, Salvengers 2 bodies into play, and then Chariot is 2 bodies in play. So even if they kill my elf, I can Airbender Ascension something, and then play 2 creatures that make 2 bodies. This will unlock. I can animate the Chariot and then blink the Chariot, and get 2 more bodies. So got a Tulsamir. This is another thing we can blink with Airbender's Ascension, but this is just like a green-white beatdown deck that does blinking things pretty well. Got a Suki to pair with her voice. But yeah, just calling it green-white vehicles. You can call it whatever you want, but just a green-white curve play to the board deck. Again, we're not playing the Air Temple. It's just difficult on the mana if you want to play Llanowar Elves. Simic Birds. Okay, so this is kind of inspired by the Bant version. A little more streamlined. No Yorion. Just trying to get Raised Chocobo online as quickly as possible and just murder people. So we're playing our 1-drop, hopefully playing our 2-drop, playing some more birds. flipping this, and then getting the opponent dead. We've got Drunith to copy all of our cheap bird spells. Unfortunately, we don't have that many 2s, but Wan Chi is technically a 2, so we can copy it. And Mockingbird as well, actually. You just don't get to clone with the Drunith. But yeah, another cool deck. If you want to play Chocobos, give this one a try. All right, Simic Critters. I'm calling it Critters just because it's just like Rabbit Frogs pile. But yeah, another Drunith deck. I think this card's really powerful. If you've heard me talk about it before, my opinion on this has not changed. We get the ever-powerful Halo Hopper in Pioneer. So that means that on turn 1, we can play Might Caller. Turn 2, we can Mockingbird the Might Caller, play something that's a rabbit or a frog, and then convoke out Halo Hopper. The other thing that's important with this is if I play Drunith on turn 2, then I can play Might Caller. I get 2 Might Callers. I can play this thingy and get 2 of it, or I can play a Mockingbird on 2 to get the 2 bodies. So we don't have that many 2-drops. You know, that's maybe an error in deck building, but you could also just play an additional Drunith. A lot of different things you can cast. Probably going to be Mockingbird, so you can go Might Caller, Mockingbird for 2. You're just going to get a bird. You're going to get 1 Might Caller, and then you can convoke at the Halo Hopper. Now the Drunith is going to double the Halo Hoppers, so that's cute as well. But yeah. We've got Rapid Hybridization. This could maybe just be another 2-drop if you want that. We've got Fairy Miscreant, which works well with Drunith. You just get to draw cards. Mockingbird also works well with Miscreant. So you can see why the deck is built the way it is. We've got Riddler plus Splash Portal as a little scam, and then a new card in Diligent Zookeeper, which gives things +1/+1 if they're not humans. And they get +1/+1 for each creature type. So your Llanowar Elves get to attack for 3. This thing is, whatever, 5. These are all +2s. And then anything you copy with Mockingbird gets to be a bird in addition to its other types. So potentially 3 from that. So yeah, just an old standard deck that I wanted to port over to Pioneer and try some things with. Like I said, it's a little awkward in real time realizing this hole in the 2-drop slot, but there's going to be some problems with the deck, so you're going to have to compensate. At least I caught it so I can address it. Another spicy deck. Lots of spicy decks. I hope you make sure to leave a like if you're enjoying this, because I'm proud of a lot of these decks. We've got Simic Engineer. So we're using Chief Engineer. I don't even think this card's on Arena, unfortunately, if you want to try it. But artifact spells have Convoke. That obviously works well with Pinnacle Emissary. So if I can tap my Chief Engineer, I can play this for 1 mana, and then every artifact I play is going to make a 1/1, and now I can convoke out my artifacts by tapping those 1/1s. So if you have Mystic Forge, this lets you play artifacts off the top of your deck, and it's very obvious how this can get out of hand quickly. So if I have Chief Engineer, I convoke this out, and then whatever other things I have, I convoke out a Mystic Forge. Now I'm playing all my artifacts off the top of my deck. So all my 1 mana artifacts are going to basically be free because I can just tap the Thopters. And yeah, you can use Patchwork. Automaton can get really huge. You can use Unctus to make your things become blue, and then every time you convoke, you're gonna get to loot. So that's another way to have like a Mystic Forge type effect where you're just churning through your deck and drawing more cards. Kinnan gives you a bunch of extra mana, and then we have Forging the Anchor, which lets us look at top 5 and add all artifacts to hand. Our deck is primarily artifacts, so this is just a really good draw spell that will help us set up our combo. So yeah, this deck is interesting. This is a lot like Quantum Riddler to me, where it's a card that is just like clearly incredibly powerful in Pioneer, but I don't like people just don't experiment or in Modern, but people just don't experiment in Pioneer. And I think there's a lot of ways to make this card incredibly strong. Like if you just start with a Springleaf Drum and then play this and then keep casting, like I guess it's best to start with Pollinator, where you go Pollinator in 1, play Pinnacle, tap the Pinnacle and the Pollinator, cast Moonsnare Prototype. That makes a Thopter. Now you can immediately tap the Thopter, make 1, play a Drum. You can immediately make a Thopter. Now you can tap the Drum. So you can have really strong starts. Like there's a very specific reason I have 12 Springleaf Drum effects in my deck. And that's before even having any of the card advantage spells like Forging Anchor or Mystic Forge. So yeah, I think stuff like this should definitely be explored more. Maybe I'm the person who has to do it. I'm fine with that. But you will see me playing decks like this. This deck actually doesn't have any new cards. So whoops. I guess I just thought this one was cool enough to show. But you can play Grand Grand. Grand Grand works well with all this stuff. I guess I messed that up. But it's fine. Life goes on. Grand Grand. 61. I don't know if this one's worth, but you could try Mox Amber stuff too. But I think I mostly felt like the Mystic Forge plus forging the Anchor stuff covered all my bases. So, oops. Next deck, Simic Mech. This deck I already posted about just because I thought it was cool. I think I made a video for it. The list is gonna vary, but we've got Badger Mole Cub that helps us curve into Orboroid, and then of course the Zookeeper, which Mind Link Mech can copy Orboroid. That's kind of the point of the deck. You get a 4-power Orboroid, but you can also just use it on Zookeeper to make your board even bigger. The mech isn't going to get pumped because it's going to become a human, but that's fine. Your Llanowar Elves will be 5 power all of a sudden, and your Sentinels will be 9 power because this is a non-human that has 3 types. So yeah, that's this deck. Not too fancy. It's kind of similar to the Critter deck you'll see. Maybe this one's a little bit more fleshed out. But we've got Oasis to work with Orboroid, and yeah, just a curve of creatures and some beatdown, and then of course Miscreant to go with our Druniths. Sultai Elves. Okay, more Drunith stuff. This time we are doing it with elves. We've got Mockingbird to copy our War Masters or our Dwynnin Elites or our Shaman of the Pack. We've got Drunith to help copy all of our things and just make a big board of elves really quickly. And then we've got Shaman of the Pack, which can be copied with, like I said, Mockingbird or Drunith for a boatload of damage. A lot of our elves have 2 creature types, so we're playing Zookeeper. So this is like a Whitleaf Liege. But it doesn't care. Like, with Whitleaf Liege, you need your things to be green-white. In this case, we can just have monocolored threats that are getting +2/+2. So yeah. Most people just play Collected Company, and maybe you're better off, but I wanted to try Zookeeper in another shell like this. And I thought this had some cute things going on. So that is Amori Sultai Elves. Yeah, if you forgo the company, you do get Amori for whatever that is worth to you. All right, I said there was going to be another Obosh deck. I was right. So this is Obosh Affinity. So I messed around a bit with some Up the Beanstalk Quantum Riddler stuff, and then I quickly realized that you just don't need Up the Beanstalk because this draws so many cards. So yeah, we've got Obosh, another deck where I figured out, hey, I don't think I need to play 2-mana cards. I can play all 1-mana cards and cards that are cost reduced. So Emery costs 1, Rebuke costs 1, Guardian costs 1, Pinnacle costs 1, Riddler costs 2. And then we've got a bunch of Springleaf Drums to go well with our Emissary and just make mana for Riddler to draw more cards. And then we can find Flux, we can blink it, we can hardcast it, we can do all the things in between. Teething Wormlet gains us a boatload of life because we're playing so many artifacts with Emissary. And then it can get big for Obosh, so it actually hits for relevant amount of damage. So this is just a Simic deck splashing Obosh and Pinnacle Emissary, but you do have a lot of red sources kind of for free because of Pollinator and Springleaf Drum and the lands. So, yep, just Teamer Affinity, you call it Simic Obosh Affinity if you want. Yeah, another attempt at making Pinnacle Emissary work in Pioneer. Teamer Bean Affinity. All right, we're back. We didn't go far. We got Grand and Sokka to do things. This works with the drums and loots. This just gets bigger when you cast artifacts. Also, these are legends for Mox Amber, of course. But this version is no Obosh. This has Up the Beanstalk to work with things like Foundry Assembler, Memory Guardian, and Quantum Riddler. So yeah, this can be cast for 0. This can be cast for 1. And then we've got Giantcraft Helm that can make these things bigger. It's just a cheap artifact for Affinity or Improvise. And then you just get a giant dude, ideally on the flyer. Yeah, just similar stuff going on. We've got Kinnan to make mana. We've got Up to Beanstalk and Riddler to draw a bunch of cards. And then Grand can loot. So can Sokka just to filter out your hands. So one thing about Obosh, you don't get Ornithopter. I don't think you really need Ornithopter. But it is still going to be good with Pinnacle Emissary. And it is really good with things like Springleaf Drum. So there is the Beanstalk version. Now we have Beck Call. Okay, yeah. This is one of the craziest decks. So this is Teamer Beck Call Affinity. So if you have Beck Call and you have the Lotus God, you can draw your deck. I believe it's optional, right? Otherwise you'd lose. You can draw a card. So I'm making 1/1s. Every time I make a 1/1, I get to draw. Every time I draw, I get to make a 1/1. So you can go infinite this way. And the way we're getting Lotus God out is we're using Neoform in an Affinity shell. So we've got Memory Guardian. We've got Quantum Riddler. So for 4 mana, I can get a Lotus God, or for 3 mana, I can get a Lotus God with this. And then we also have Beck Call to combine with an Affinity deck. So we've got Ornithopter, we've got Hangerback Walker, we've got Stonecoil Serpent, we've got Market Backwalker. All these are 0s. which means we can just play this as a, I can't remember the name of the modern card that's banned, but we can play it as that card and then just draw a bunch of cards that way. This does not work when you cast. It works when a creature enters, and that is extremely relevant with Pinnacle Emissary. So this is a deck that has this Lotus God combo, but it also just kind of had, like, all these cards are part of different plans. There's not really a thing, like, other than drawing Lotus God, you're going to be kind of upset. But all these cards work together pretty well. Like there's definitely going to be some issues with this deck. It's difficult to make all these things fit into a 60 card shell. But this is interesting and it's kind of exciting. You've got a random Ouroboros, which is just a fine card to draw, especially when you're making a bunch of Thopters. And then we can also Neoform our Pinnacle Emissary or our Emery to get it. So I think this deck is well constructed for the ideas that I had. I think this deck is really cool. It has an infinite or quote unquote infinite combo with Lotus God. It's doing powerful things. Very excited to try this one out. Again, it has one new card. It's just the Sokka. Not the most new cards, but I think it's exciting to show, and I think it's cool. And just another example of some of the things you could try to do in Pioneer. Finally, we have Teamer Song combo. This has Sokka, this has Grand, this has Boomerang Basics. So yeah, this is just Song of Creation pile. Draw your deck. Eventually, you just win. You can play Thassa's Oracle. I just have Prof's Steel Cutter as my win condition for the most part. We can use Emissary and inside and make a bunch of Thopters. But Boomerang Basic is a really strong card again. You can bounce things like Deafening Silence or High Noon. The other thing this does is if you have a Mox Amber and a Kinnan, where your Mox Amber makes 2 mana, well, you cast Boomerang Basics and you just end up plus a mana. If you have Song of Creation, well, it's going to trigger 2 times and draw you 4 cards. The other thing Boomerang Basic does that is relevant is that it bounces your Song of Creation. So let's say that I think I'm going to fizzle or whatever, and I don't want to discard in my hand. Maybe I drew Profs and I won't have to discard the hand size. Well, now I can Boomerang Basic my Song of Creation when I just have the board that I want. And I'm like, oh, you're not playing a combo deck. I can just win this way. You can bounce the song, and then you just get to keep all the cards in your hand, which is kind of nice. But yeah, this is just a combo deck. Again, using Sokka to help you get to the song more quickly. No, more creatures for Mox Amber. Mox Amber is really important with Kinnan. That's how you make all your mana to go off with Song of Creation. But yeah, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed. There's going to be a Moxfield link with all the decks. I think I already have them sorted. All that's done. I always post a Twitter thread, so I'll probably do that later today with all these decks. You can check it out there. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're, at least, even if you're not interested in Pioneer, you appreciate some Pioneer deck building with new cards. This is always fun for me. It's a ton of work, so please drop a like at least. I would really appreciate it. If you want to, you can subscribe if you want to see these decks. All that other stuff, you can follow me on all the places. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Peace.